Shedeur has just done everything right.
Like Shedor's got to go to bed thinking to himself, like, how do I get people that hate me on my good side, but you can't even do it?
Yeah, he's not criticized the team. He's been humble when asked about all the opportunities. You and I have noted multiple times about how great he's been with fans.
Think about how easily he's being picked apart, too, though, in all of these discussions. Like Howard today led his show talking about Myles Garrett's comments yesterday, where Myles talked to and said that he was funny, is the term. He's funny and lighthearted were the two words that Myles used to describe Shedeur Sanders. And Colin acted as if that was like some sort of, how can you be funny and be a quarterback?
Like he had a backward hat on?
Well, that's what he went to, as if like you're not a grown-up 23-year-old. You're not a grown-up enough at 23 because you make Myles Garrett laugh occasionally. Like he's being picked apart in ways that I've never seen a quarterback picked apart to this degree. And now Colin did it with Baker Mayfield in many respects. And in many ways, it does feel like the Baker Mayfield treatment. But that's why maybe I think I've loved Baker for a long time. You guys know this. And I love Shedeur. And I think part of that reason is because they share a lot of the same qualities that in many ways have people love them and then also have people hate them.
If we maybe separate the opportunity here for Shedeur versus the Shenoise, as we're going to call it, that's what kind of makes that backdrop so interesting to me, just whatever wars are going on here, because I think Shedeur has a lot more to lose tomorrow night than he does to gain, because I don't know what it's going to take for him to change the perception within that building. When I say perception, I mean of the guy that isn't ready, that doesn't deserve more than third and fourth team reps. Like when the other quarterbacks are getting first team reps, no matter what they do, no matter how good they are, and no matter how good you are, you're not moving off third and fourth team reps outside of a preseason game, which isn't as important as the practice they played yesterday, where you didn't get a lot of first team reps or second team reps. Yeah, you start to go here and you go, okay, this is clearly not just a gulf between the Shahive and the Shahaders. It also seems to be a gulf in between what maybe Shedeur has done so far and what the Browns want, or Kevin Stefanski and his staff want them to do before he gets to a point where he'll be taken seriously in this quarterback kerfuffle.
Well, so I wonder if that's why there's a lot of damage control that appears to be happening here. And part of that reasoning is because I think some segments of the Shedeur fan base understand what happens on Friday isn't going to change a lot of the Browns' perception anyway.
Yeah.
And so you almost are in this spot where if you end up throwing and not looking good and it just goes abysmal, then you're going to get laughed at and you're going to be able to get, poked fun at. But then if he has a great game in the eyes of the Browns and what they've shown us so far, that's not really going to do much either.
Yeah, I mean, he's so far behind. And I like the narrative this week by people affiliated with the Browns or reporters who've talked to the Browns has been, well, he's made up some ground. Yeah, but he started at the bottom of the Grand Canyon and everybody else was at like ground level.
Which I think Browns fans are right and Shedeur fans are right to point out that it didn't seem fair that Dylan Gabriel started on a much higher platform than he did. And when the difference was 2 rounds and the pre-draft grades were nowhere close.
And this doesn't mean that it's sabotage. It doesn't mean, but like, yes, I mean, the chances that Shedeur has a bad game, to me, that is going to slam the door closed for the Browns in any immediate opportunities to push for this job, which I think is still more open than people realize. I think if Dylan had a great game tomorrow, maybe this would change their mind. Maybe Dylan gets more first-team reps. If Kenny Pickett, preseason Pickett, balled out tomorrow, if he were playing, well, I think that would give him a leg up in the starting competition. I don't know that's what's going to happen even with a great game for Shedeur. Whereas if Dylan Gabriel has a bad game, we've shown it's not going to hold him back.
No, you know when
he's got bad practices, it's not holding him back. Whereas Shedeur does, yeah, it might be the thing that, okay, well, Shedeur, we're just going to, we'll unwrap you and undust you in like November.
Here's the problem. If Shedeur looks great tomorrow, the response is going to be, well, they care about the Wednesday joint practices more. They've never shown that they care about the output in a preseason game. They care about the joint practices more. And if I'm Shedeur, I'll be like, what else did you want me to do here?
I think there's still a perceptional problem with the Browns in that the Browns do not buy into Shedeur being ready. And so much of what you're hearing from the beat, I think, is the Browns have told, the entire beat, well, it's about the little things. It's about, pre-snap, post-snap. It's about calling plays out in the huddle. And whether that's true or not, because then that's where, the Shahive, as it were, gets pissed off about this. The truth is, that makes me wonder, like, even if you have a great game tomorrow, is a great game not about numbers, and it is about, did you get Spider 2 wide, Banana 77, Pickle 2, Oxnard? Is that more important than 300 yards and 3 tutties.
Well, and playing with that concept, like there are a couple things that historically you would think it's not great, but it isn't the same, death sentence of sorts for Shedeur Sanders if it happens. Like, for instance, if Shedeur fumbles a snap, I feel like that'll be worse than him throwing 7 interceptions tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he spends 2 or 3 different plays running backwards, I think that's going to look worse than 2 or 3 interceptions. Like, there are certain things that the Browns are looking for that he's got to try to pass. And there's certain obvious things that if he's not able to do it, it's going to come down hard on him. I'm more worried about if he looks great, how I feel like this won't do anything for the Browns, more to what Emery was saying.
Like, on one hand, I understand how the NFL works, which is so much of this is coach sees you and sees something of himself within you. And I do think, like, I think when Kevin looks at Dylan Gabriel from a computing standpoint, he might see, like, Kirk Cousins, another quarterback he very much, Kevin's talked about how much he likes Kirk Cousins and how much he thinks. I mean, Kirk Cousins was almost the quarterback this year, if not for, the Falcons getting a little greedy and trying to
We still
win
don't know
that
why
situation.
he was in that Chipotle.
But, like, because he really likes Northeast Ohio Chipotle.
He took a whole plane, came here, only ate fast food for the 2 meals of the day, and then promptly left. And we're just like, yeah, everything was on the up and up.
But, like,
visited the physician in Berea, and then everything's because he can only do that. Clearly.
So I'm torn between, I know this is how the NFL works. And by the way, Kevin Stefanski will not be alone in being like, that's my guy, that's not my guy. I don't think Shedeur was his guy. I think it was Andrew Berry looking at an incredible value grab and something that could turn into a valuable chip down the road, whether it's for them or in terms of trade or whatever.
Well, so if it looks that way, that's why it's on the table. And I know Browns fans don't want to hear that, and Shedeur fans don't want to hear it either. Maybe some do. It's on the table that he plays great on Friday, and then what this turns into is, hey, Matthew Stafford's injury is a little bit more serious than they thought. They don't want to enter the season with Jimmy Garoppolo, as injured of a human as he is, and now you're trying to get a 4th or a 3rd round pick from the Rams, and that's the win.
So this is how the NFL works. The other half is, though, like, I'm cool when it's like, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo, who you've been in a Super Bowl with, versus CJ Beathard, right? When everybody is some iteration in that quarterback room is some iteration of CJ Beathard, is where I'm like, okay, I get that Shedeur was a 5th round pick, but what are we doing here? Right? Like, I think that's where
that's been our side the entire time.
As Switzerland, it's like, listen, my point is not Shedeur deserves a better chance than anyone. It's that Dylan Gabriel doesn't deserve a better chance than him. It's that Kenny Pickett doesn't deserve a better chance.
Well, and as people have pointed out continuously this week, Shedeur, some people believe, didn't earn this opportunity. He was just gifted this opportunity. Like, it's not
that narrative hit quick too. By the way,
it's not a feather in the cap of the Browns. Then, if you're going to look at it that way, it's not a feather in the cap of the Browns that they are giving him this opportunity. It's not. It's looked at as this was our only option.
I mean, they're going to take it. If he plays well, if this works out, it's going to be, we've always loved Shedeur. Of course, we gave him that opportunity.
And it's going to make me so irritated. The same way I predicted out 2 weeks ago that if they do this to Shedeur, everyone was going to turn around and be like, I like that they're slow playing him. They're doing him the right way with this slow playing thing, but he didn't ask for it. He didn't ask for this. This is not what anyone wants that gets drafted into the NFL, to have this be your treatment. But they're doing him the right way. All right, guys.
But this is inevitably why I come around to the idea of, I think Shedeur has more to lose tomorrow night, because for every bit of ground that it's going to take for him to gain a yard in terms of perception, in terms of, are you Kevin Stefanski guy? Are you a Tommy Rees guy or not? You can much easier lose 3 yards of ground. And I think that's that is part and parcel of what tomorrow is. You can throw 10 great passes tomorrow. If you fumble a snap, or if you have happy feet in the middle of the pocket, that's going to go farther for how people view you in that organization than not. And that is exclusive to this player. It's not the same for Dylan Gabriel, and it's not the same for Kenny Pickett. And that is where ultimately I kind of cock my head to the side and go, okay, what the hell's that about? No matter if you know how the NFL works or not.
And I'm sure we're going to have after the game, he could have all sorts of great numbers and look really nice. And we'll have after the game that there was 75 different things that the Browns just didn't love that he wasn't able to pull off and wasn't able to do. And it's just it's gonna be just this magic trick they continue to try to pull on us.
So here's the thing. I don't think it's like a
sleight of hand of sorts, though. They've done this with the practices that we've all watched. That's how I feel this has gone down so far, because we've been there and watched Dylan Gabriel stink up the joint while Shedeur Sanders looks good. And then you get the reports afterwards, and it's like a sleight of hand, as if they're trying to tell us that something we're seeing isn't what we're seeing.
So so part of this is a PR narrative that I do think is intentional. And I think there's a myriad of ways you could look at that. We've talked a lot about this. Part of it, though, is I just think this is how people work. Bias is real, and bias happens in every job. It happens in our business, right? If you have a PD that believed in you and then the next guy comes in and doesn't believe you, well, get this, you're probably not going to work here for that long.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of how every business works. I think circumstances should overcome a little bit of this, where you're like, listen, we can't be biased. We can't have our preconceived notions. And I still think a little bit of this is, I still think Shedor's digging himself out of how he handled the pre-draft process. And I think the Browns have bought a little bit into their own narrative of, well, he's not NFL ready. By the way, you know how the only way you get NFL ready is you actually see the field, especially in practice, and you get to work on things like calling plays out, like pre-snap reads. The only way you do that isn't by sitting on the bench or by doing VR, which is, again, valuable tool. But it doesn't do this. It doesn't do the same as 10 reps in actual practice.
Well, that's where, if I was to give them a little bit of credit, that's where I do give them credit. Is they didn't say for this preseason game. That's where I was going to get mad, was with the idea that they would just waste reps with Tyler Huntley. They've at least given Shedeur the opportunity, and now Shedor's got to make the most of it, and I think he will.
216-474-0092. Is there anything within reason Shedeur can do to change his perception tomorrow? I think it's really hard to do that now. Right. And because I think the Browns are also still cognizant about maybe the things they didn't love about him in the pre-draft process. I think if Shedeur is going to change the narrative, he's going to have to play his way out. But I don't think preseason game number 1, where they didn't want to give him this opportunity.
I don't know, Nick, if they all of a sudden, if he looked awesome tomorrow night, and then they turned around Saturday and was like, up the depth chart is now Shedeur Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it'd be odd of this whole structure, this whole group, for how hell-bent they've been about the joint practices being everything, and they really care about that, and they're not as high on the preseason games. It'd be weird if they did take a lot of stake and put it into what happens on the field tomorrow night.
But I think regular season reps, meaning in games, or maybe even just regular, once you just don't have time to think about bias, and you're just there's so much time in training camp that I can understand that you get hung up on your own thoughts and biases or whatever. You don't have that time in the regular season. And that is why, inevitably, on top of every other reason you and I have talked about the last month to 6 weeks, why I do think Shedeur's most honest opportunity with this organization is going to come October 30th or, somewhere in November, where all of a sudden you realize, well, yeah, winning's important, but now all of a sudden we're not doing that, and we need to start thinking about the future. And, oh, by the way, we're going to give this kid more opportunity. Oh, he's surprising us. He's made, honestly, what's happened with DTR, even though DTR then didn't go play well, I think that's the scenario where Shedeur finally makes up this ground or changes the way, whatever. And by the way, I'm saying it's Kevin Stefanski. It could be Tommy Rees. It could be anyone on that coaching staff that just is not yet bought in on this kid just to this point.
I just hate how much of this feels like they're trying to play some sort of PR game, and how much of this just seems like they're thinking like 12 steps ahead when it comes to the conversation around Shedeur. I feel like they always do this stuff, and they always end up getting it wrong. I wish they were just honest. I wish they just shot everyone straight, and it's bothersome to me that it doesn't feel like they're playing the game the right way.